Want to learn English in a fun and easy way? Learn English through stories. It's the perfect way to improve your skills. This video focuses on your listening and reading skills. So, let's get started. The Lost Puppy. It was a bright and sunny morning in a small, peaceful village. The birds were singing, and the air was fresh. The sky was blue without a single cloud. In this village lived a little boy named Tim. Tim was 8 years old, and he loved animals. In fact, he had a special friend, his puppy, Max. Max was a small brown puppy with big round eyes and soft fur that felt like a warm blanket. Tim and Max were best friends. They played together every single day. Every morning, when Tim woke up, Max was there, wagging his tail, ready to start the day with him. But one day, something strange happened that would change everything. It was a quiet Saturday morning. Tim woke up early, as he always did. He was excited to start his day, because Saturday was his favorite day of the week. There was no school, and he could spend the whole day playing with Max. Tim quickly jumped out of bed and ran downstairs. He was excited to see Max. "Max, where are you?" Tim called, but something felt strange. Max did not come running to him like usual. There was no sound of little paws running on the floor, no excited barking. The house felt quiet. Tim started to worry a little. He looked in the kitchen. Max was not there. He looked in the garden, where Max loved to dig holes and chase butterflies, but Max was not there either. Where could Max be? Tim thought. His heart began to beat faster. He looked behind the sofa, under the table, and even in his bedroom again. But Max was nowhere to be found. Tim started to feel sad and scared. Maybe Max ran outside, Tim thought. I need to find him. He quickly put on his shoes and went outside. Tim walked through the village, looking in every direction. He called out, "Max! Max! Where are you?" But there was no answer. He walked past the big tree in the middle of the village, where he and Max often played. He checked behind the bushes, thinking Max might be hiding there, but Max was not there. Tim knocked on the doors of his neighbors' houses. "Have you seen Max? My dog is missing," he asked, but nobody had seen him. One neighbor, Mrs. Green, said, "No, I haven't seen Max today. But don't worry, Tim. I'm sure he will come back soon." Another neighbor, Mr. Brown, said, "Maybe Max went to the park. Dogs love parks, you know." Tim nodded and thanked his neighbors, but he still felt sad. Max was his best friend, and now Max was lost. Tim knew he couldn't just sit and wait. He had to do something, so he decided to keep searching. Tim walked for hours, looking everywhere he could think of. He went to the village park, but Max wasn't there. He walked by the river, hoping Max might be playing near the water, but he didn't see him there either. Then, just as Tim was starting to feel tired, he heard a noise. It was a soft sound, almost like a bark. Could that be Max? Tim wondered. He listened carefully. Yes, it was definitely a bark, but it sounded far away. Tim followed the sound, walking toward the edge of the village. He soon found himself at the entrance to the forest. The forest was big, with tall trees that seemed to reach the sky. It was a little scary, but Tim was brave. If Max was in the forest, Tim knew he had to go in and find him. "Max, I'm coming," Tim called as he entered the forest. The trees were thick, and it was hard to see very far ahead. The sunlight was dim here, and the sounds of the forest were all around him. The rustling of leaves, the chirping of birds, and the occasional crack of a twig under his feet. Tim kept walking, following the sound of barking, which was getting closer. As Tim walked deeper into the forest, he heard footsteps behind him. At first, he felt scared. He quickly turned around, ready to run. But instead, he saw a girl about his age. She had a friendly smile on her face and waved at him. "Hi," the girl said. "What are you doing in the forest all alone?" Tim was surprised but felt relieved. "I'm looking for my dog Max," he said. "He's lost, and I heard him barking in the forest." The girl smiled again. "My name is Sarah. I live near the forest, and I play here all the time. Maybe I can help you find Max." Tim felt a little better. Now he wasn't alone in the forest, and with Sarah's help, he was sure they could find Max together. "Thank you," Tim said. "Let's find Max." Sarah nodded, and they started walking together, listening carefully for any more barking. As they walked deeper into the forest, Sarah suddenly stopped. "Look," she said, pointing to the ground. Tim looked down and saw small paw prints in the dirt. "Those look like Max's paw prints," Tim said, feeling excited. The paw prints led off the path, deeper into the woods. "We should follow them," Sarah said. Tim agreed, and they both began to follow the paw prints. They walked carefully, making sure not to lose the trail. The forest was quiet now, and they could no longer hear the barking. Tim started to worry again. What if Max was hurt or stuck somewhere? They followed the paw prints until they reached a small river. The paw prints stopped at the river's edge. Tim and Sarah looked around, but couldn't see any more prints on the other side. "Do you think Max tried to cross the river?" Tim asked, feeling unsure. Sarah thought for a moment. Maybe, but how could a small puppy like Max cross a river? Tim looked at the river. It wasn't very deep, but it was wide enough that Max couldn't have swum across by himself. Tim had an idea. "What if we build a bridge?" he suggested. "We can use some of these big branches to make a way to cross the river." Sarah smiled. "That's a great idea. Let's try it." They both worked together, finding strong branches and laying them across the river. It wasn't easy, but after some time, they built a simple bridge. Carefully, they walked across it, one step at a time. When they reached the other side, Tim felt hopeful again. "Max must be close now," he said. Just as Tim called out, "Max!" they heard barking again. This time, it was much closer. Tim and Sarah looked at each other and smiled. They started running toward the sound, their hearts full of hope. They soon reached a small cave hidden behind some bushes. Inside the cave, Tim saw Max. His little brown puppy was stuck behind some rocks, but he looked safe and unhurt. Max wagged his tail and barked happily when he saw Tim. "Max!" Tim shouted, running to the cave. "I'm so happy to see you." Tim tried to move the rocks, but they were heavy. "We need to move these rocks," Sarah said. "If we work together, we can do it." Tim and Sarah pushed and pulled the rocks with all their strength. Little by little, the rocks moved, and soon there was enough space for Max to get out. Max jumped out of the cave and ran to Tim, wagging his tail and licking Tim's face. Tim laughed. "You're safe now, Max. I was so worried about you." With Max safe, Tim and Sarah started the journey back to the village. The sun was setting, and the sky was painted with beautiful colors: orange, pink, and purple. The air was cool, and the forest seemed much less scary now. As they walked, Tim thanked Sarah again. "I couldn't have found Max without your help," he said. Sarah smiled. "I'm glad I could help. Max is lucky to have a friend like you." When they reached Tim's house, his mother was waiting at the door. "Oh, Tim, you found Max," she said, hugging him and Max tightly. "Yes, we did," Tim said proudly, "and I made a new friend too." Sarah waved goodbye and headed home. Tim felt happy and proud. He had learned that even when things seem hard, you should never give up. And he had also learned the importance of kindness and friendship. That night, Tim and Max sat together by the fireplace, tired but happy. Max fell asleep quickly, his head resting on Tim's lap. Tim looked at his puppy and smiled. No matter what happened, they would always be best friends.